Welcome, everybody, to the 11th episode of Beyond the Buzz, hosted here at the Hive in Grand Forks, North Dakota. And it's a product of the Northern Plains UAS test site, just to help our industry get a more basic knowledge of what we do and how we can help our nation, get UAS into national airspace. Today, we'll be talking a little bit about our FAA radar data Pathfinder program, and we're talking about how it can have implications on a national scale. And I'm joined by Everett, Dunnick here at the Northern Plains UAS test site, and Mr. Michael Robbins from AUVSI. I'll take a moment for you to kind of introduce yourself, give a little bit of background. So, Mike, you would like to go first?
Yeah, great. Thanks so much. So I'm honored to lead AUVSI, the Association for Uncrewed Vehicle Systems International. We are the industry trade association for the autonomy industry. We represent companies in the air, ground, and maritime domains, and both commercial and defense. I have been with AUVSI for about 5 years. I've been CEO for just over a year. Prior to that, I was doing consulting primarily in the technology, aviation, defense space. Worked previously at a trade association in the commercial aviation space. Spent 10 years on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. as a chief of staff to a member of Congress, and also throughout much of that time have been in the U.S. Navy Reserve. So mix of government, military, commercial, and defense work, and absolutely loving leading AUVSI. It's a great organization. It's been around for 53 years. Has evolved a number of times throughout its history, and right now, just absolutely in the news, on Capitol Hill, in the Pentagon every day, at the FAA, working on solving points of friction for our members, and trying to move the industry forward. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Everett Dunnick. I am Director of Special Programs at the Northern Plains UAS test site. I've been on staff working here in North Dakota for the test site for about almost 4 years, coming up in August. Prior to that, about 8 years as a program manager with General Atomics and General Atomics Aeronautical, working on either hypersonic production or the Block 50 ground control station for MQ-9, or probably most relevant to this organization, I was the lead for the Flight Test and Training Center. So when General Atomics went to source and site a OEM training facility here in Grand Forks, North Dakota, I led the charge from Poway up here, set up shop, and the operation is still in business to this day, flying MQ-9s in the pattern out at Grand Forks, Red River, on a daily basis. Prior to that, I had about 27 years of active duty in the United States Marine Corps, doing infantry, reconnaissance, special operations, and the like. A lot of interaction with my aviation counterparts, a lot of interest in the way unmanned aircraft in particular changed the dynamic for the intelligence and reconnaissance community. And I think other than that, I just want to say thank you to Michael. I'm a big fan of AUVSI, the work that you guys have done in the last couple of years, especially. I love the venue. Enjoy looking forward to seeing everybody in Houston. And thank you for all that you do for us, both in the Beltway and outside.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here, and I look forward to the conversation.
So before we get into kind of more a little bit about the radar data, AUVSI sent kind of a powerful message to the National Senate about ATC modernization. Mike, can you tell us a little bit more? Why now? Why is this such an urgent matter?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And there's a couple of reasons why now. And I think the first and foremost, it's because it should have been decades ago. And as we point out in our letter, as I've said in speeches and in testimony on Capitol Hill, we're really operating with an air traffic system, operating our broader national airspace system, the NAS, that is decades past its intended lifespan. And that comes with consequences. That means that we're not upgrading to newer technology that is going to enhance aviation safety. It means we're not implementing technology that's helping to build the future NAS to accommodate more traffic and new types of new entrants, commercial space, drones, high altitude, low altitude drones, advanced air mobility, other types of new entrants that are going to be coming down the road here soon. And it also means that we're spending a lot of money, often billions of dollars a year, putting duct tape, so billion-dollar duct tape on systems that were built for a different era of aviation. You take all of that knowledge, which is something we've known for a while, and then you couple that with the recent incidents that have occurred in the NAS, including right outside my window, on the Potomac River, where 68 lives were tragically lost in an accident that should not have happened in 2025. Like, it's unacceptable that an air collision occurred, between a commercial aircraft and an Army helicopter in 2025, when there's absolutely layers of technology that should have prevented that from happening. So take that, you take the recent outages at Newark, the fire at Chicago Center, the NOTAM outages from a few years ago. All of these are building up into a narrative of the system is badly broken. And rather than continuing to invest in just repairing what is an outdated system, we really need to invest in modernizing the system. Now, it's easier said than done, because you can't just turn the current system off and turn a new system on. But with a strong dollar investment, as well as a coherent strategic plan, and the will to execute and to fight and to get it done and stay committed, like that will put the U.S. on a very different path than the one we're on right now. And that's what we're advocating for. That's what we're up on the Hill talking to the Senate and the House about. That's what we've been at FAA and DOT talking about. There's going to be hearings on that today, tomorrow, and on Thursday on Capitol Hill. We've submitted testimony to those hearings as well. So part of this conversation, both because we all fly and we all want a safer airspace, but also because the technology that's in place now will limit ultimately the broader aviation spectrum from seeing benefiting and the true benefits within 21st century aviation. And that means other countries will race ahead of us. The U.S. has always led the world in aviation since the Wright brothers, sort of had that first flight. U.S. has always been the lead. We are very much at risk of losing our world lead right now because we're falling behind on advanced aviation. And one element of that, not by no means the only one, but certainly one, is our aging air traffic infrastructure.
Yeah, it's a very powerful message. But not only do we have to, update these systems for manned aviation, but the next step is also, looking into unmanned aviation. And, now that's becoming an up and coming thing here, and Ev will kind of transfer over to you here with the Northern Plains UAS Test Sites Avantis program. That program has been trying to work on increasing the safety aspect in, getting drones, into the national airspace and making it and getting that clear picture of manned aviation for safe flight. I was, Avantis working with the FAA to get radar data access. Can you kind of give an overview of the journey and just how the program came to be and how the stock came to be?
Sure. So thanks for the question. I'm sure this venue gets quite a bit of material about Avantis and the updates for the participants, because the Northern Plains is putting on the show, and we love to talk about our star child. So this is the 2019 initiative to develop a statewide beyond visual line of sight network within the state. Series of connections made with our RT partners and our systems engineers, system integrator Thales, to create a fabric of surveillance systems and command and control systems that would allow unmanned aircraft to fly in the national airspace for commercial, public, or other purposes. We started with key site installation in Western North Dakota, and have extended each year our range in terms of surveillance and capacity to handle unmanned aircraft pretty much on an annual basis. We keep keep pushing the envelope in terms of what the network is capable of. But at the back of our mind, we always understood that the state of North Dakota really wasn't interested in creating surveillance capacity in every square inch of the airspace over the state of North Dakota. And the most obvious way to approach scaling was through the utilization of federal resources and federal assets that were already in place, already being used for similar purposes by the air traffic control schema to monitor and manage the flow and work of manned aviation assets for commercial and public purposes. And so we approached the FAA through application at a very early stage. As we started talking about BANS, we started talking about the utility of how federal radar data could be used for similar purposes in terms of building out our surveillance volumes. And it was, I would say, several years after the system had been at least developed and matured at a nascent level that we were responded to by the FAA, and we opened a dialogue with them about the way we would approach a Pathfinder program. So this was very much an initiative or a partnership by the FAA to reach out to us as again, a good partner, someone that could approach the problem and find the right balance between the potential utility of the surveillance assets that they had in place for manned aviation and the obvious security implications of releasing NAS radar data to the flying public through selected entity, let's say that. And so we offered a couple of different things in terms of a partnership as a government institution, and we were very much in line in terms of our approach on the security measures and the way we valued the technological capabilities that the FAA was using and that the interagency was interested in keeping intact. That has proved, I think, very, very fruitful in terms of the dialogue that we've had with them and the development steps that we've gone through with them. But again, I just stress the fact that what we're talking about here is a Pathfinder. So we're taking it one step at a time and figuring out the answers for the problem sets as we approach them. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. And transitioning back to AUVSI, with this Pathfinder program, and in your comments, Mr. Robbins, you push for having, you're advocating for all ADS-B equipage and access to ground-based radar data for UAS. And with this radar data Pathfinder fit in AUVSI's broader strategy to help increase safety in the national airspace as drones start making their way into the airspace?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. It really comes down to the goal of getting to a zero collision airspace, and that really should be the goal. It should have been the goal a long time ago. It definitely should be the goal now. As I said, the aircraft collision that occurred just outside my window, not too far away, over the Potomac, is unacceptable in 2025, and one that should not have occurred, and would have been prevented had the Army helicopter had its ADS-B out transponder on, alerting the exact location of that aircraft to both the air traffic tower as well as to the commercial airplane. Similarly, we have a large number of aircraft that are operating in the NAS today that, for whatever reason, have not equipped with ADS-B. ADS-B is not required in all airspace, and it's not required of all aircraft. In certain airspace, it is mandated, of course. And in certain aircraft type, it is mandated. But there's large swaths of the U.S. and including large portions over North Dakota where ADS-B is not part of the current federal mandate. We believe that enhanced electronic conspicuity would significantly enhance safety for all users, for both commercial aviation, business aviation, general aviation, balloons, paragliders, parachuters, others, as well as the emerging autonomy industry, drones, other types of autonomous aircraft, advanced air mobility, because it gives situational awareness to the operator as to where every other aircraft in the airspace is. We don't currently have that. One of the outcomes of the Beyond Visual Line of Sight Aviation Rulemaking Committee that actually wrapped up its work more than 3 years ago now was that the drone industry has said we will voluntarily give first of all, we'll voluntarily equip with ADS-B in, which means we'll be able to receive ADS-B signals. The FAA doesn't want drones broadcasting out, but we'll receive, and then we will detect, therefore see the other aircraft that are electronically conspicuous to us, and then avoid those aircraft, and see and avoid. Can't do that if we can't see an aircraft, and there's still a lot of aircraft that are not broadcasting. So in addition to expanding ADS-B, there are other things that we can do that can be done to help with that goal of universal conspicuity. For one is starting to incorporate low cost, low power, portable conspicuity devices that are available on the market now for a couple $100. That can be held in someone's hand or put on their backpack as they're in a balloon or doing a parachute jump, or put in your pocket or on your aircraft if you're not equipping with full ADS-B, but then it gives you it's broadcasting your location to other airspace users, which would be a huge step forward, and something that we're working with a number of aviation stakeholders on moving down towards that path right now. Similarly, using anonymized ground-based data radar, like you have sort of uniquely have access to in North Dakota through the Pathfinder program, is another layer of safety by providing the operator, whether it's a drone operator, advanced air mobility, or another aircraft operator, with that same airspace awareness picture of there is a aircraft here. You don't need to know what the aircraft is. It doesn't matter if it's general aviation, if it's another drone, if it's Air Force One. It does not matter. You just need to know where it is and what altitude it's at so that it can be avoided. And we're at a stage today where the sophistication of the drone operations are such that a drone will never, as long as the drone is able to detect, whether it's through the Pathfinder program's ground-based radar or electronic conspicuity broadcasting from the aircraft, or both, like a drone will never come near another aircraft, because it will detect that with plenty of range and avoid it either by an altitude adjustment or changing the route or landing if it's safe to land, or whatever the case may be. It's going to get out of the way. And another outcome of the ARC was that as rules are written, the drone industry will take on that burden of right of way and give right of way to the legacy aircraft, to the other aircraft, if we can see it. But if we can't see it, it is a shared responsibility. And that is the way FAA rules are written. And there's this sort of assumption right now by a lot of legacy aircraft operators, particularly in general aviation, that they have right of way over the drone, and that is not the case. It is a shared responsibility. That is really problematic for them because it can be very hard to spot a drone, and it's very problematic for the drone because if that other aircraft isn't operating with any kind of electronic conspicuity, that drone's probably not going to be able to detect that airplane either. So that really does create a problem. So what we are working on with the Pathfinder program would be a huge step forward in being able to provide all operators with knowledge of where other aircraft are to avoid them long before there's even any thought of there being a potential collision. The algorithms are super sophisticated and are going to avoid any kind of incident like that. And it really does make sense. I mean, I think this has been something that we really appreciate, the team in North Dakota working on for a long time. I know it's been a very, really, really challenging to get here, but it does sort of open the door, we hope, to this being expanded, beyond as well. And I think that's really what industry is excited about is how can this become a model for sort of nationwide deployment over time, hopefully soon. in a way that does provide this really, really useful airspace awareness tool to all operators, but particularly to drone operators.
Yeah, that's great. And then just to kind of keep you talking, and I know we are kind of interested in this question probably as much as the next person, but how is this FAA radar data, if once this gets deployed, how is this seen as in industry as a whole?
Yeah,
Is there an excitement around it? Is there?
Yeah. I mean, I think there is. I mean, you've got a lot of current operators, ranging from like small UAS operations all the way up to autonomy operators that are retrofitting existing aircraft like Cessna 280s and Caravans that want access to this data right now. They want to be able to plug this into their operation to give them that additional layer of airspace awareness, because it really is safest. It's best to be operating with multiple layers of airspace awareness technology. But right now, obviously, because of what we believe are probably some overblown concerns around national security concerns, in part because the data can be anonymized, as you're proving. It's very restrictive, and I think industry is anxious to see what the results from what you've got going at the Pathfinder program, and then how can that be lessons learned be extrapolated at scale throughout the country and deployed, and hopefully with some degree of speed. And I think AUVSI is a very anxious partner to help you with that. And we've had a lot of conversations about this, obviously, and how do we take the lessons learned, both getting to where you're at, because I know it was very, very difficult. You guys had to fight hard for it, and we appreciate that. So, what was your path, and how do we streamline that in the future? But then also, how do we begin, deploying this at scale? Because it really is going to be a very useful tool to allowing operations to begin to scale.
And then Ev, this is a huge thing for North Dakota, the state of North Dakota, to get this radar data. What are some of the why is this important for North Dakota?
Sure. So I think Michael had rightly a good characterization, from the outside. For the state of North Dakota, as I mentioned previously, Vanis always looked at the scalability problem and understood the federal resources were really crucial to getting the scale up into the order of magnitude that would be necessary for full commercial integration, all different types of use cases we could imagine over those distances. A similar sentiment can be made about regional solutions for same. And so with that understanding, as we approach the feds, it's important that, from my perspective, we've been head down on this solution now for a couple of years. We think in generalities about the way this would apply. We've looked most closely at the way we would come up with a network solution that was acceptable, not just to the FAA, but to the interagency. That the sentiment that Michael shared about the risk associated with the release of the data is under very intense scrutiny right now for very obvious reasons, because of all the activity we've seen overseas and in the news media with unmanned aircraft traffic that people are just new to or uncomfortable with, or they don't recognize. That there's a lot of concern and consideration about the way the radar data that is collected by the federal government, how it is utilized for what purposes, and who has access to it. And those are very natural security concerns. And so we've approached that as a partner to the FAA. We couldn't have done otherwise, right? We needed them to be in a position where they were interested in going forward on this path. They now have legislation under Section 905 that is going to expand on that theory of the utility of this data. I want to stress that from their perspective, this is a theory. How it applies and what value that radar data has to unmanned operators is an open question that we're going to help find answers to for them. And it was that with that in mind that, we appreciate the prestige of being approached first, but we feel like we earned it in terms of the investment on the part of the state in the existing Vantis network. And the way we built our facilities, our state facilities, in partnership with Grand Sky Business Park and the Grand Forks Air Force Base and Grand Forks County, that allowed us to approach the FAA in a manner that was fully cognizant of the physical and cybersecurity controls that would have to be implemented. We designed from the outset with that in mind, as well as the standards for unmanned flight. That we knew security controls of this kind were probably in our future for some purpose, whether it's for a customer, whether it's to be compliant from the FAA standpoint. So this is the realization of the state's heavy investment and dedication to finding ways to get our unmanned aircraft into operation beyond visual line of sight and using all that capability to help people's daily lives.
Yeah, and it's tremendous. I mean, North Dakota really has paved the way.
Well, thank you for that. You're going to be leading, you're moderating a panel at AUVSI Xponential, and can you tell us a little bit about kind of who's on that panel, and kind of what kind of topics will you be covering, about this subject?
Sure. So leading up the panel is Mario Everett. He is the program manager at AJR 22 for the Pathfinder project, former Air Force officer that has been a true partner in this work, working very closely with us, not just on the Pathfinder, but basically blocking and tackling for us inside the FAA headquarters, as well as approaching the NDRB, that's the NAS Data Release Board Secretariat within the FAA, to help broker the package of information that's going to get set in front of that board of interagency partners and satisfy them in terms of the applicability for the system, as well as all the satisfaction and all the security control measures. Our partner in Vantis, our longtime partner, MITRE, is on stage with us as well. Jeff Dunnick is the program manager for the support to Vantis at MITRE. He will provide, I think, some very valuable context on the evolution of this project over time, not just for Vantis, but for others and the interest that exists. I think for us, but also within the FAA, because they have the ability of seeing inside both headquarters, if you will. And then Erin Riesler is going to be up on stage. She's the deputy executive director for the Northern Plains Test Site and part of the Vantis Executive Steering Committee, and has had a steady hand over the last couple of years in terms of where the program is going and how it's developing. She and I have been literally tied at the hip, working either up or out with the state entities and the federal entities, or working on the project specifically and getting the team oriented and tasks accomplished. It's been a very fruitful partnership. We love where we're at right now. We're confident where we're going to be in about a year from now. And so that cast of characters will be there to answer as many questions as we have, given the understanding the Pathfinder is in process. It's a work in process. Progress. And so we will tell you what we know, and we will tell you where we're at.
No, I'm looking forward to that discussion. Especially we're having the FAA on board to talk about it and give it on their side of why they're pushing for this on their side as well. How about on your side, Mr. Robbins? What are you kind of looking forward to about this discussion?
Yeah, well, first, we're less than a week away from Xponential, which is, for those not tracking, it's AUVSI's annual trade show and conference that we co-host with our partners, MDNA. And it starts Monday, May 19th at the Houston Convention Center. And it's 4 days of jam-packed programming. We've got multiple different policy tracks, technology tracks across all domain, air, ground, maritime, commercial, and defense. 8,000, 9,000 people. It's huge. It's awesome. And 3 full days of trade show exhibits as well. hundreds of exhibitors, with technology on display. So there's a lot that I'm excited about. I think the panel that you're discussing, I think is very compelling to a lot of operators that are currently operating in the national airspace, or are looking to operate soon, or are sort of looking to scale operations. And I think you're going to find strong attendance there because, as I mentioned earlier, like, the where we're at right now is sort of like people want to see what this is and is it real? And if it is real, like, how do they get access to it, and how can they help? And I think there's, if and when, because I think the answer is when, not if, the Pathfinder radar program is shown to be the resounding success that we all believe it will be. You're going to have a coalition of people, including AUVSI at the front of the line, and a lot of our members, right there with you to try and build upon your success. So I think you're going to find an active audience that's anxious to hear about how you got there, what the current operations look like, what the future looks like, and then what the future even beyond North Dakota looks like as well. Because while your interests are obviously in North Dakota, there's no doubt that throughout all 50 states and even internationally, like there's interest in this program because it's unique. It hasn't been done before, and holds great potential to be able to unlock beyond visual line of sight operations.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and that panel will be on Thursday at 10:30. So you're if you're already going to Xponential, please come, or you can visit the Northern Plains US test site at booth 3414, and we can answer your questions at that booth. So kind of want to do a little wrap up here, so we have a little time for questions if we do have any. But we'll start with you, Mr. Robbins. Just if you can just sum this up in one sentence, why is the radar data worth the effort? Why is it worth the struggle of getting this to work?
Yeah. In one sentence, it just comes down to airspace awareness and providing operators with that awareness of where other operators in the NAS are, so they can detect and avoid them, which is really hard to do right now if not all aircraft are electronically conspicuous.
Mm-hmm. Ed, do you have anything to wrap up?
I think we could probably match on that point, that airspace awareness and the way we look at our national airspace. It's in the news for very good reason. It's on the cusp of very significant change. We think that we're at the forefront in terms of kinds of changes that we would imagine, to full leverage to the utilization of unmanned and autonomous platforms. We want to see that future, and so we think we're in a good position to do that with this Pathfinder program.
That's great. Well, thank you both again for your time here and
Thank you.
Talking about such a monumental movement forward into aviation. But I would like to leave it up to either those in the room or those online. Do you have any questions? And we can, if you're online, feel free to put your questions into the chat. It looks like we do have a couple online. So our first one is, could you help me understand the roles of AUVSI and MITRE and how they work with NPUASTS, or the test site and the FAA? Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I'll defer to Mike on AUVSI's role, because I think that's kind of his job. But MITRE, though, is a federally funded research and development center, a really huge organization that services the federal government in a variety of different ways. The Northern Plains Test Site, from the very beginning, has had this very strong relationship with the segment of MITRE that works directly with the FAA. And urban legend is that the FAA actually had to give them permission to work with the test sites. And so they have basically just opened up the aperture for us in terms of the science and technology expertise that they provide routinely to the FAA. We have access to same, and they've helped us enormously.
Do you want to, Mike, do you want to give the AUVSI version of that question? Just how do you work what is your role in working with the Northern Plains UAS test site?
Yeah, we are allies in trying to bring operations into reality and getting from beyond testing into allowing companies to truly get into full commercial operations, both for all the different mission types that are relevant to North Dakota, including long line linear infrastructure inspection, public safety and first responder programs, drone delivery, medical delivery, logistics, infrastructure security. All of these are happening now, and in some cases happening at scale, but are often limited by the regulatory framework, which is in part held back by the lack of airspace awareness. So working with Northern Plains, I think you guys are on the edge of doing a lot of different unique operations. You've got small UAS, you've got very large Group 5 UAS operating, and you've kind of got everything in between. And I think we learn a lot from what you're doing in North Dakota. The state has, as I mentioned earlier, really led the way with both investment in infrastructure, but also in forging relationships with industry and with the FAA, and really bringing the FAA in as a partner. So I think there's a lot that other states can learn from North Dakota, and a lot more that AUVSI and Northern Plains UAS site can continue to do together to move the industry forward. And we really appreciate the ongoing engagement and collaborative relationship that we have.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate that, and really thank you for your guys' support into showcasing some of our programs that we're working on and things like that. So, question in the room?
Yeah, Ryan Steenerson here. Great conversation with all of you. Great information. Mr. Robbins brought up a great point about expansion of the system throughout the NAVs. And when you look at North Dakota's experience in technology and security, with NDIT and what they do, what does that partnership, that's the right word, with other states as expansion moving forward, what does that look like for the radar data and integration, and kind of your concept on that?
Thanks for the question, Ryan. When you approach scalability, I won't sugarcoat it for the participants. The bar that the federal government has set, the FAA in partnership with the agency, is pretty high. And there may be a day where this type of exchange of information is commonplace, but for the foreseeable future, that bar is going to remain relatively high. And so I think the other entities that are interested in this level of scale, in terms of BVLOS operations, are going to look at North Dakota and at least make some type of apples to apples comparison in terms of the type of investment they would require in order to access and utilize the data. And it's just going to be more cost effective to go to entities that have already figured this out rather than try to build it from scratch. I think, candidly, the federal government would probably be more comfortable with a smaller number of highly skilled and qualified operators and accessors of the data than, a grander scale, at least in the near term. Right. So that lends itself towards, a fewer number of qualified providers for that data that already have the assurance, the security assurances that they're interested in. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think. Well said.
Okay. Then we do have one more question online. What are some of the ways that traditional ATM industry players can get involved in support of these integration programs? Either of you, I guess that might be.
I gotta hear that one again.
What are some of the ways traditional ATM industry players can get involved in some of the integration programs?
Well, so certainly start by joining us at Xponential next week and attending the Northern Plains UAS panel on Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. So that's a great way to get started.
I mean, part of me just wants to say, why don't you come to North Dakota and try flying in our airspace, and we'll be happy to help you. There's nothing like actually pushing on the envelope to push the envelope, right?
I've had the privilege of coming to North Dakota a couple times to the test site, and each time I am just blown away by the impressive operation that you've built. It really is second to none.
Thank you. It's a team sport. We all get into it.
My take on that question was on the air traffic management side. How do they plug and play into the Vantis or the federal radar data? So to revise that question, it's a great question.
Yeah.
But when you look at ATM and what so many are doing in that space, how do they plug and play with the developments that you're creating as repeatable and scalable?
Mike, did you want to take a crack at that one? I mean, I could offer a little bit of insight.
That's definitely better for you. Yeah.
So I think we've been really careful to approach our services, to be very respectful of the job that the air traffic control schema has, that they've got a tough job already with lots and lots of challenges. We definitely didn't want to add anything to the existing burden for them. And the services we deliver are not necessarily, not categorically the same work that air traffic control does. That, the services are designed to enhance safety cases and put the awareness and the enhanced safety in the hands of the operators. That this is very much about building the necessary infrastructure for, again, safe, repeatable, and scalable operations to take place in lots of places. We think that fits well currently with existing air traffic management methodologies. It becomes more complicated the closer you get to high density and urban settings. That's probably the limits of what I'd be able to comment on.
Okay. Any other questions in the room, online?
Okay.
Sorry, I got one more.
Oh,
one more last question, and then I've seen airports like EWR shut down due to lack of ATCs. Are there any short-term and long-term solutions possible using UTM?
Well, I think using UTM is probably not a short-term solution. I think the short-term solutions that the FAA are pursuing is building more redundancy into their telecommunications networks to ensure that they don't have the sort of outages that they've experienced at Newark Air Center. That's sort of like their short-term patch. But the question's a good one in that it sort of opens up the aperture to a much broader discussion, which we could do a whole other webinar on, around the future of UTM or uncrewed system traffic management. I really see a future where UTM, which is right now deployed in by some operators throughout the NAS and in the North Texas area in particular, there's a federation of UTM providers and operators sort of plugged into a federated network that they're testing right now with the FAA to showcase how drones can avoid one another using strategic deconfliction software. And in a lot of ways, that is proving out that advanced software-based, software-defined technology with sophisticated algorithms can really do a great job of strategic deconfliction of air traffic. Right now, obviously, it's with drones, but there's no reason to think in the future that technology won't continue to scale and evolve into higher levels of altitude and more complex airspace and other types of aircraft. So we see the success of UTM as a sign that the technology is there. We now have to continue proving that out, showcasing the safety case, building comfort with the regulator, with operators within the broader aviation aerospace world, to begin thinking about how that expands into other types of airspace. But there's no doubt that UTM has been an early success, and the future of that type of strategic deconfliction software holds great promise for the future of air traffic control.
All right. Awesome. Well, we'll probably end this webinar here before we get into a whole nother webinar hour and subjects. But thank you everybody for your questions, and thank you again, Mr. Robbins and Ev Dunnick, for joining us today. I mean, it's been a wealth of knowledge, and if you're going to AUVSI, we look forward to speaking with everybody at AUVSI. Or if you have any more questions about this, feel free to give us a call through and contact us through our website, NPUASTS.com. And then you can join us right here next month, Tuesday, June 10th at 9 a.m. Central Time for our next webinar for Beyond the Buzz.